progress earlier in the interview. That's Senate President Steve Sweeney's 27-bill package aimed at reforming the state's fiscal affairs. The #1 item in the list is pension reform and health benefits reform for public employees. As you both know, there was a huge rally at the State House Thursday where public employees and progressive groups said no more pension cutbacks on the poor public employee workforce. Is this parallel legislative agenda that the Senate President has been pushing for a year going to vie with the governor's own agenda as this budget goes forward? How do they relate to one another?
I think the governor has spoken publicly. He thinks certain things should be collectively bargained. Senate President's position is very clear that there is a process equal to collective bargaining with related to these health benefits and working on the pension system. And these
he's saying you can do it by legislation. You don't have to collectively bargain with the union.
Because historically, a lot of it has been done legislatively in the past. And I would say to the brothers and sisters that make up those unions, who are all friends, that everyone's got to relax a bit and look at this with open eyes. Because unless we do these things, the question of the pension plan surviving is a question. If we do some of these things—
Where's Murphy stand on that?
I'm not going to speak for the governor. I can only speak for the House I'm working in. As I said, the governor seems to think it should be handled in a different way. But here's something I've said publicly. I'll say again. New Jersey residents across the state are calling for reform. They just don't like the idea of change. And that's a very hard dynamic to work in. Want reform, don't want change.
That's a tough place to be, I think.
And that's where we are.
And another piece of the path of progress, probably the second most talked about piece, is something you alluded to earlier, which is school reorganization. The Sweeney plan would consolidate all K-6 districts and K-8 districts with the nearest K-12 district, eliminating a lot of administrative costs. You support that?
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah?
Makes a lot of sense. Listen, other states go by countywide basis. And sometimes if you make districts too big, they become unwieldy and not as easy to manage, and sometimes not as efficient as the right size school districts. But we've come to a time, and listen, I've recognized one thing. Anytime you talk about change, people fear change. It gets them out of their comfort zone. And as Assemblyman Burzichelli said, let's just talk about this and let's work our way through the process, or this state is going to become unaffordable to more people. We're educating children from K through 12 now earlier, and that $200,000 plus investment that we're making, $200,000 plus investment, a lot of times leaves the state before we get any benefit from their education.
$200,000 per child?
Per child, roughly, in that neighborhood. We need to make changes. I mean, getting back to the pension system, I have a daughter who's been a police officer for 5 years now. And the last thing I would want to see her at the end of her 30-year career would not have a pension system after putting all that money in. We will never, ever make decisions as elected officials that are this controversial if they're not necessary. The worst thing in the world for somebody who has their pension already, let's say they're 5 years from retiring, is be 75 years old and that check stops coming in. That'd be far worse than making adjustments during this process in some kind of equitable way so that we can make these things survive for the long term.
On that note, we're out of time. Thank you both very much for giving us a good